Matt and I went to the same school, and although we weren't nerdy, we weren't stupid either. In our late teens, we decided we didn't want to go into huge debt for college, especially since there was good money to be made working in the trades. Plumbers were often in short supply, and Matt had a plumber uncle who was older than Matt's father and had reached an age where he was happy to take on a couple of apprentices to teach them the trade while underpaying them. He was also old enough and thrifty enough to consider retirement, and Florida, with its milder climate, beckoned to him as his rheumatic joints could better withstand mild winters. Matt envisioned that either he or both of us would take over his business and grow it into something bigger. So we joined Uncle Steve, worked as apprentices for low pay, but got the basics and skills we needed. We had a plan, but before it was implemented, all the difficulties of growing up awaited us. Overcoming teenage crises, learning to live, sex education, and, no less important, understanding relationships with friends of both sexes, what makes people become and remain friends, what people value and why they want to be next to you, the ability to be good company, loyalty, and everything that goes with it. At school, we had each other's backs, and soon everyone learned that if someone took on one of us, they would have to deal with both of us. We weren't huge guys, but we were physically strong from sports, and we all got into fights. I think our friendship was cemented forever that day when I got into trouble with two big football players and Matt jumped up with his fists, and before they knew what had happened, we took them to the ground together. After that, we became inseparable, and no one wanted to mess with us anymore. As for the opposite sex, Matt was a bit of a ladies' man, loved variety, and was rarely without a girl on his shoulder. My name was Jim, by the way, and I became in love with Kate the first year after school, when Matt and I were learning plumbing from his Uncle Steve. I met Kate in a bar one night, and we immediately liked each other, spent a lot of time together, and eventually moved into the bedroom where we realized we were perfect for each other. Matt was starting to feel like a third wheel, and he hated that he'd lost his partner, but he said I was doing great, and that if it weren't for me, he'd like to see where his relationship with Kate would have taken him. In the company, we all got along so well that it seemed like we were one family. It wasn't uncommon for Kate and Matt to hug, and I didn't think anything of it. We were friends, and there's nothing to worry about if your friend is next to your girlfriend, right? Life went on, and no one changed more than Uncle Steve, who retired, sold the business to Matt and I, and moved to Florida. My parents guaranteed the loan that financed my share of the business buyout from Steve, and Matt's money came as a gift from his parents, so I was the only one carrying the debt. I married Kate 2 years ago, and life seemed pretty sweet. A good marriage, the business started to flourish even more thanks to our efforts to grow it. A little advertising, recommendations on social media from past clients, and soon we had as much work as we could handle. The option was to hire more people, but trained plumbers were not always easily found at rates we could afford, so we worked more and more. Kate worked as a clerk in a law office. The salary was normal, but she didn't really like her job, and there was an unpleasant lawyer who tried to pester her, but she brushed him off. Then she said that she wanted to start a family. I wasn't sure when this would happen, given my credit, we were managing, but it wasn't the right time to lose her income. As my work hours got longer and we had no real opportunity to start a family, Kate began to withdraw into herself, and I began to worry about possible depression. I kept telling her that it wouldn't always be like this, and that there would be happier days ahead, but that didn't help her unhappiness. Then one day, it was as if someone flipped a switch. A smile appeared on Kate's face, and the tension disappeared. I was surprised by what happened, but I was glad to see my wife smiling again, so I didn't think twice about it. Soon our stalled sex life came to life, and Kate seemed full of energy and wanted sex almost every day. How many of you will be against this? But one day it started to bother me. A few weeks later, I needed someone to talk to, and the obvious candidate was my best friend Matt. Matt and I met at the staging post bar, grabbed a couple of beers, and sat in a booth along the back wall. "What's bothering you, buddy?" asked Matt. "You haven't been yourself for the last few weeks. I was waiting for you to speak. I didn't want to interfere." I hope it's nothing, Matt, but it's about Kate. She was depressed, hated her job, and was harassed at work by a nasty lawyer. But about 6 weeks ago, she changed. She was happier than ever, and after 2 weeks, she tried to wear me out in bed. And what's your problem with a happy wife who wants to wear you down? Matt said with a grin. Well, after a couple of weeks, I noticed that she suddenly became very infatuated with my assets. The thing is, she had no interest in them before, and it made me wonder where this came from. She's learning new tricks with some other bastard. We spent a couple of hours drinking a few beers, but now two people were bothering me. I'm not an educated person, but I've heard about the principle of Occam's razor. When several solutions are proposed, the most obvious one is usually the right one. Over breakfast that Saturday morning, I said to Kate, I have a lot of work to do today. Just a heads up that I'll be gone all day, so you might as well invite your lover while I'm gone. Kate looked absolutely shocked, to the point where she couldn't say a word. She ran to the bedroom, sobbing. I walked out to my truck. No one canceled the work. I lied that I would only work until lunch, and yes, the fool fell for it. When I got home, Matt's truck was in the driveway. When I walked in, at least they weren't in bed. They were sitting at opposite ends of the couch, with a box of tissues between them and about 40 wet wads of tissues lying on the floor in front of the couch. As I walked in, Matt stood up to meet me, and he just managed to say, Jim, when my fist exploded in his face and he collapsed to the floor. There's no need to apologize to my best friend. She's your problem now. Kate, pack your things and get out of here, you dirty bitch. I don't want to see your lying face again. As she started talking, I yelled at her, I don't want to hear your false apologies. Don't talk, or I'll actually hurt your lover. I'm in the mood for real destruction right now. Just pack your things and get out. You'll get the rest when I'll be ready. Best of all, I'll pack it and leave it in the office. I'm sure your lover will bring it home to you. Out. It only took a few minutes for her to come out with her bag and Matt to make it to the couch. That's right, get out of my house. You'll both hear from my lawyer next week. I kept the door open. Kate couldn't look at me, but Matt tried to talk again, so I punched him in the stomach, and he got the message, and they got out in Matt's truck and drove off. I spent the rest of the day learning about divorce, which was relatively simple in our case, and dissolving a company, not so simple in our case, since I was the only one bearing the debt associated with it. Time for a lawyer. I made an appointment online with a divorce lawyer and hoped that I could find someone to take on another issue at the same appointment. I went to see a divorce lawyer, Karen King, and before going into detail, I asked what I needed to do to dissolve the partnership with the man who had my wife. She said she would bring her husband Carl to the meeting. He is a corporate law specialist, and the two cases may be related since both cases involve the same person. The divorce was quite simple. A rented place, everyone finances their own cars, and no children. This usually makes the process easier 9 times out of 10. The difficulty was the business. It was founded before my marriage to Kate, and she signed a prenuptial agreement recognizing the business as non-marital property. It was actually Matt who suggested doing this just to protect the business in case Kate and I didn't make it through. However, my business partner was now dealing with the end of a marriage, and there was no way in hell we would continue to be partners. My problem was that I had significant debt on the loan used to purchase my share of the business. I took a copy of the business agreement between me and Matt when we formed the company after taking over the business from Steve. Carl read it and declared that it was very simple and not difficult to terminate. Carl talked about what I wanted. It was simple, in a word, to get out. He outlined several options. Jim, you can sell your half of the business. You don't have to sell to anyone in particular. Do you want to keep the business successful or hurt it? If you want him to live, sell him to Matt. Make him pay dearly. If you want to damage it, there will probably be a large company that will buy your half and then forcefully liquidate the business so that their existing business will take over the freed-up resources, eat your company from the inside. The downside to this scenario is that your employees will likely get hurt. The other option is to simply walk away, disappear, not service your debt, and let the business fail. Carl, I can't do this. As much as I want to disappear and leave all this crap behind me, my parents guaranteed this loan. I can't leave it on their shoulders. The problem is Matt knows about it and might try to exploit. It's against me. We concluded the meeting. Kate was due to receive the divorce papers in 2 days at her work for maximum humiliation. Matt was to be served with a notice of intent to dissolve the business partnership within 30 days and invited to make a satisfactory buyout offer. He will also be given this in 2 days. Now all I have to do is sit and wait. I didn't go to work, started getting calls from Matt, which I ignored. He was sending me emails saying we have a business to run. Where the hell am I? Work was piling up and clients were complaining about missed appointments. I ignored it too. To be honest, I didn't care about the business. I just wanted to leave. The next day, my phone exploded with messages ranging from, "How could you?" from Kate to, "What the hell is going on, man? This is our business," from Matt. I sent each of them a photo of my raised middle finger with the caption, "Fuck you." Kate hasn't even tried to talk to me since Saturday. She knew the level of disgust I had for her. She knew our marriage was broken, betrayal, but not just any betrayal. It was with my closest friend since childhood and my business partner, worse you can't imagine. That evening, they both came to my house and made another mistake. She used her key to let them in. I attacked them and started hitting Matt again. He begged me to stop and didn't hit me back, saying, "Please, Jim, we need to talk." Kate screamed, "Please stop, Jim, please. We all need to talk." I looked at her with a cold gaze and said, "That bastard is not welcome in my house under any circumstances, and neither are you, but at least you have some right to come here. Never use that key again, really. Really give it to me right now. You lost your right to come and go here when you became a bitch to my ex-best friend. Now get out, both of you, before I do anything I regret. Kate, if you want to talk to me, call my guy. Lawyer and make an appointment. I will meet you in her office, not here, and I will not meet you anywhere if this conniving piece of crap you love is present. Now get out of both of you. Matt, I will be in the office tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I will talk to you then in front of our staff. I am selling my half of the business to the highest bidder. Cooper's Plumbing has already said that they will make me an attractive offer. He looked furious and started talking, but I interrupted him and repeated that he needed to leave. I took Kate's key and locked the door behind them. If they didn't understand the depth of my anger before, they certainly did now. I intended to destroy them both if I could. Did I mention that I used adultery in my divorce petition? It wouldn't matter other than to humiliate Kate. I intended for all of our friends, family, her workplace, everyone I could think of to know she was a cheater. Before my anger subsided, I went to Facebook, changed the status to separated, and wrote the following post. I wish to announce the end of my marriage to my soon-to-be ex-wife Kate due to her affair with my soon-to-be ex-business partner Matt. These two pieces of pawn trash committed the most insidious betrayal possible, a wife with her husband's best friend. Why? I have no idea. I just kicked her out of my house and didn't talk to her, other than to confirm that neither she nor the insidious crap she now loves is welcome in my home. The divorce and sale of my half of J&M Plumbing will happen as soon as possible. If anyone wishes to remain my friend and not theirs, please do not mention their names in my presence. They are both dead to me. By the end of the day, my Facebook page and my phone had been pinging with message notifications all afternoon and evening. I only took one call. It was from my father-in-law, Jim, whom I called James. "Jim, I heard the news. It sounds serious, son. Is there anything I can do to help?" "James, thank you for calling. I'm afraid this can't be fixed. You could help by asking her to just finalize the divorce papers and be done with it." "Jim, she's here today. She's heartbroken. She claims she was depressed and foolishly sought comfort from your friend Matt. She claims she only loves you. Will you talk to her?" "Not today, James. She knows I'll only talk to her in my lawyer's office. There's nothing to talk about." "James, thank you and Martha for everything you've done to me. I'm sorry it ends like this." "I'm sorry too, Jim. Goodbye-bye." At 8 a.m. in our office, I called everyone together. I thought that everyone had the right to know what was happening and the possible consequences for the company. Matt sat with his lips pursed as I began. Guys, I have bad news. My cheating bitch wife and that piece of shit you see at that table have been having an affair for 2 months. If I find out that someone here knew, there will be a showdown, a serious showdown. Assuming you didn't know this, I'm selling my half of the business. I doubt this piece of crap will be able to offer the right price, so I contacted Cooper's Plumbing, and they are interested in buying my share. If they do this, there is a good chance that they will close the business. Maybe they will take one of you, but maybe not. If that happens, guys, I'm sorry, but unlike that creep, I have a major debt to service, and I can't stay partnered with a conniving bastard like Matt, my ex-best friend. I need to get rid of the debt and start again somewhere else, but not here. Now, excuse me, I need to talk to this piece of trash to figure out what we're going to do. Sorry, you're all good guys. I hope everything works out for you, but if you have the opportunity to find another job, I'd suggest you grab it with both hands. As the office emptied, Matt exploded. Damn it, Jim. Was that really necessary? We could have worked it out. Kate doesn't want me, she loves you, and I don't want Kate either. I'm not one to get involved. You need to get over this and move on with your marriage and get your business going. I know you hate Coopers. I can't believe you'll sell to them. I smiled. Yeah, I hate Coopers, but not as much as I hate you. Time is running out on your 30 days. What, 24 or 25 left? So trust me, I'll sell to them and hope they close you. You won't get a day longer than that unless you start trying to raise funds. You're more of a fool than I thought. One more thing before I go. I won't do a single work assignment for this company. It's all on you. If you had worked harder instead of having my wife, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation, you damn snake. And one last thing, do right by Kate, or I'll seriously hurt you physically, got it? I may hate that bitch, but you got her for yourself. Now deal with it yourself, or I'll deal with you, in some dark, quiet place at nights when you least expect it. As I walked towards the door, he tried again. Please, Jim, you know I need you. I can't do this without you. Let's try to forget this. My raised middle finger as I walked out gave him an answer. I returned home and found a message from my lawyer. Kate asked for a meeting tomorrow afternoon and wanted to bring her father and her lawyer, who, by the way, was the same snake from her office who tried to harass her several times. She seemed to have fallen from the top of the tree of stupidity and caught every branch on the way down. I agreed to the meeting. I did not see the need for James to be present, but I respected him and did not want to offend him. I showed up early for a meeting to speak with my lawyer, but she had nothing to offer other than to let the other side talk to understand what was on their mind and then counterattack from a position of strength. Kate could barely look me in the eye, but James was his usual solid self, sincere and honest. It's a shame to meet in these circumstances, Jim. Please just keep an open mind. I shook his hand warmly and told him I was glad to see him, despite the circumstances. Her lawyer was a different matter. He didn't like me right away. He had just been introduced to me and was shaking my hand when he said, "Let's end this nonsense and get you two together again." I looked him straight in the eye and squeezed his hand tightly. "That's not going to happen, Gibson using his last name. We have never met, although I have heard about you and your attempts on my wife. Let's be formal, call me Mr. Wilson." I let go of his hand and he nodded. My lawyer said, "Mrs. Wright Wilson, please tell us why you asked for this meeting. The terms of the divorce are fair, and your husband does not want a reconciliation with you after your insidious adultery. This is one of the most shocking cases of betrayal that I can remember." Gibson chimed in, "I'm sorry, but this is a gross exaggeration of the facts." I immediately intervened. "No, Gibson, this is an accurate statement of the facts. Are you here to chat or to facilitate this meeting?" Finding her voice, Kate said, "Please, that's it. I can answer for myself. I asked for a meeting because I don't want a divorce. I love my husband, despite what I did. Please, Jim, sit down and talk to me. Let me try to explain myself." I was about to rip her head off when James intervened. Please, Jim, just talk to her, just you two. That's all I ask, and I promise you, Jim, I'll never interfere again. James always treated me well, as did his wife Martha. I respected him, so I nodded to him and said, "Okay, James, but just one meeting and that's it. I won't change my mind, but I will do it out of respect for you and Martha. I have absolutely no respect for Kate." My lawyer chimed in. "There is no problem if you two meet at any time. After all, you are still married. However, I advise discussing any objections to the terms of the divorce, so that we all know where we stand if your conversation proves fruitless. Are there any objections to the terms of the divorce?" My client believes the terms are fair, but she reserves the right to request court-ordered counseling. "Okay, noted. Then our meeting is over unless there is any objection to the terms of discussion." As they left the office, Kate and her father approached me. James thanked me again. "God, I really loved him. You couldn't imagine a better father-in-law." Every one of his looks was laced with apology for his daughter's behavior. I shook his hand warmly again and invited Kate to come the next day at 5 o'clock in the evening. I told her that all her things were packed and ready if she wanted her father to bring them. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the doorbell rang. Kate stood there. Her father was sitting in the car. Politeness dictated that I invite him inside and pour a beer, but this was a matter between Kate and me, and it had to be resolved without the intervention of anyone else. I suggested using the dining room table, the most formal place in the house, so that there would be no misunderstanding. This was a business meeting. Kate looked nervous. She had to know that nothing good would come of this. I was very clear. What she did was unforgivable, and I would not change my position. A chance encounter with a random person at a bar after too many drinks. Unlikely it could give her a second chance after a lot of apologizing. But sex with my best friend and business partner. Multiple. She was crazy if she thought there was any chance of forgiveness, but I promised James I'd give her a chance to explain herself. "What do you want to tell me, Kate?" "That I loved you, that I was in a bad place. I hated my job. I hated that bastard who is now my divorce lawyer. I hated that you worked so much. I knew it was so that we could start a family, but I felt lost. I hardly saw you. I did what I promised not to do. So this is all my fault, and you just fell into Matt's bed? That's it, Kate, because this is bullshit that I don't believe." "No, Jim, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to tell you is that I was depressed. I went to Dr. Desing Sharp, and he prescribed me antidepressants, but I couldn't bring myself to take them. I felt humiliated by that. I needed something like that when I had a good marriage with a wonderful man and a wonderful life ahead of me. You know I wanted to start a family. You said we couldn't. And all I saw was this job that I hated and no sign that we would start the family I so dreamed of. You know this, Jim. We talked about this. You know how hard it was for me. But you said we need to wait. I hated it so much." Well, everything she said here was true. She really desperately wanted a family. I did too. But the timing wasn't right. She continued, "Matt called one evening when I told him you were working late again. He was amazed. He said he rarely worked late and didn't understand why you would do this, because that's what you hire workers for," he said. "I started to wonder if you were imagining late work, if you were seeing someone when you could be at home with me. I was already depressed, and it hit me hard. If your partner doesn't work late, why are you doing it?" "Jim," I burst into tears, and Matt comforted me, like the big brother he always seemed to me to be. And then I suddenly reached out to him and kissed him. It was me, Jim, not Matt. I responded to his kindness and got carried away. That's how it all started, my fault. I felt him turn on against me. I needed that attention, and things went further. This shouldn't have happened. We stopped it twice, saying we can't do this to you, but I kept begging him. My depression was in control of me, and I needed reassurance. That Saturday, when you came home at lunchtime, we didn't do anything. We just talked, and I cried. That was the end of it. We had to stop. We decided it had to be over. Then you walked in, and that was it. Jim, I know how much Matt and I hurt you, but you should know that we don't love each other, but we both love you. We can't undo what we did, but we both beg you to think about it and give us another chance. I looked at her, having no idea how much she thought her speech had impressed me. There was very little hope in her eyes. And thank God, because everything she said made very little sense to me. All it took to snap her out of her depression was sex with my best friend. That, in a nutshell, is what she was selling. I had no idea why she thought there was even the slightest chance for her. You have a very strange way of showing your love for me, Kate. None of these bullshit excuses make me feel any better about either of you. You're both cheating crap. I want nothing to do with you. Now I've heard you out. Hoping that you have something to say that will make me feel like you're worth something, but you're not. You're just a cheating piece of trash. I don't want anything to do with you ever again. Then the tears started flowing again, but I was beyond listening, beyond caring. Just sign the divorce papers, Kate, and we can move on with our lives. I will never, and I mean never, forgive you. You don't seem to understand what cheating with my best friend means to me. This is the end, period, nowhere to go. Kate, I didn't think it was possible to stop loving you, but you achieved it. I feel nothing but disgust for you, pure undiluted disgust. You disgust me. I can never think about you again. Warmth if I live to be 100 years old. I walked her to the door, and she cried the whole time. I made eye contact with her dad and just sadly shook my head at him. He nodded in understanding and got out of the car. Hugging her, he said softly, "Oh, Kate, what a mess," and put her in the car. He came with me to pick up the rest of Kate's things, and we loaded the car while she sat there sobbing. Then he took her out of my life. Again, James and I shook hands, now for the last time. To be honest, I had a bigger lump in my throat saying goodbye to this worthy man than I did parting with his daughter. I respected his calm support of her, but his acceptance of the inevitable, a good man who definitely didn't raise his daughter to be a bitch. Now it's time to deal with Matt. Halfway through the 30-day notice period, Matt called me. I really didn't want to talk to him, but both of us and 6 other decent people had our own interests in the matter, and the business needed to be settled. Matt, what do you need? If it's not about selling a business, I hang up. Calm down, Jim. This is about business. I spoke to the bank. How much do you want for your share? 200,000. What? You only paid 100,000. Be smart, Jim. I can't pay that much. I just don't have that kind of money. You know business is going well, but cash is tight. What are you, an idiot, Matt? You can't buy it from working capital. You have to find the capital yourself. You buy a business, it won't buy itself. Damn, you fool. I'm doing you a favor by selling Cooper's. You'll ruin everything yourself. Jim, I tried to tell you that I need you, as do our 5 employees. I'm sorry about what happened. I'm truly sorry, but you have to help us. Otherwise, we'll all go bust. I laughed. That's exactly what I hope, my ex-best friend. Cooper's offered me 200,000. If you offer more, I will not return to them with a counteroffer. Not for your sake, understand this. I hope to see you go bankrupt, but for the sake of the future of the other guys. I hung up. A week later, he called again. I beg you, Jim, the most I can collect is 180,000. Would you consider keeping a small share for yourself? I hung up. When the deadline approached, Matt called again. Okay, I found the money. I'll give you 200,000. I hung up. What the hell, man? I offered your price 200,000. Why did you hang up? I told you that this is Cooper's offer, and you must beat it. Otherwise, I will sell it to them. Jim, for God's sake, tell me what I need to do. I can't find more money. 200,005 dollars. That's the price. Do you want it? This is the price. Okay, you got it. I hung up. On the day the deadline expired, my lawyer Carl confirmed that the money had arrived. I was free. There was no point in keeping me here. I planned to wrap things up after the divorce and move to another place. After all, a good plumber is always valuable. It took several months before I received a court date for my divorce. I hoped it would all be over and I could move on to a new life and leave all this mess behind. Yes, that's how it should have been. Everything started well, both parties agreed to the terms, then everything went wrong. Kate's lawyer said, "Wilson is asking the court to order family counseling." I shouted. "You're kidding me," I said. The judge called for silence. Mr. Kenneth Wilson, you will not use such language in my court. I will consider the reasons for consultation. I apologized and Karen King began to speak on my behalf. Your Honor, counseling will not yield anything due to the blatant nature of the betrayal in this case. My client's wife had an affair for at least 2 months. My client does not intend to reconcile with her. He made it clear that there was no chance of forgiveness, let alone reconciliation. Consultations will be a waste of time. Mr. Gibson, for what purpose is your client asking to schedule a consultation? Gibson stood up. Your Honor, Wilson would like to address you herself, if possible. So be it. Wilson, you have the floor. What goal do you want to achieve with the consultation? Kate stood up. She looked fragile, completely unhealthy. I hadn't seen her for months, but she seemed like a shadow of the woman I once loved. Your Honor, I did a terrible thing to my husband, and I will regret it for the rest of my life, no matter what happens today. I know he thinks he hates me now, and it's hard to get over it. I feel like I'm losing my mind and my health. I take antidepressants, but they don't help me. I only need one thing, for my husband to love me again. Without it, I was lost. When I did what I did, I was depressed, not thinking straight, and was emotionally at the lowest point of my life, well, until today. Now life has no meaning. Your Honor, I need a chance to convince him that I love him, and that since I met him, all I ever wanted was to love him, be the mother of his children, and spend my whole life with him. Please, Your Honor, give me this chance. The judge considered her words. Yes. Wilson, I hear a lot of words in this court. My job is to evaluate their significance. I feel like I just heard very sincere, repentant words. You have my sympathy, madam, but I must decide whether counseling will bring anything positive to the marriage. Wilson, it takes two to tango. I see no evidence that your husband might be inclined to change his mind. Mr. Disease Wilson, will you agree to consultations? Your Honor, I mean no disrespect, but no, I am not interested in counseling or reconciling with Kate. Moreover, if forced, I would rather open myself up to jail time than go to such meetings. This has gone too far, Your Honor. I was somewhat touched by Jane's words today, but the betrayal was too complete. I can't forgive it or forget it, and I can't even think about living with her again. As I thought, Mr. Bolgers Wilson, this is a sad case. I feel that Mrs. Wilson truly loves her husband, but that is not enough to get him to go to counseling. I provide divorce and do not prescribe counseling. And that was it. Or it should have been. Jim, this is James. Can you come to the hospital? What happened, James? Why are you calling? Jim, I'm sorry to ask, but this is Kate. She may not survive, and she asks you to come. I'll be there, James. I arrived at the hospital and asked where Kate was. They asked me if I was related, and I explained that we were recently divorced, but she asked me, and here I am. James saw me and came up to me. Jim, I don't know how to say it, so I'll say it straight. Jim, she's pregnant, but she's on the verge of losing the baby and her life. She is not eating normally and is the first pregnant woman I know to lose weight during pregnancy. I think she's dying, Jim. She wants to talk to you. Please, Jim, talk to her. I was taken to the emergency room, and she looked terrible, barely aware of what was going on around her. But when I took her hand, she said sadly, "Sorry, Jim, I can't save our child. I'm trying, but my body is useless. I didn't want to live. I didn't know I was pregnant when I decided to starve. I'm sorry, I'm killing our child. I didn't want this, only myself." She could see the conflict in my eyes. She clearly knew how I felt about Matt's baby. Then she said, "The child is yours, Jim. I made him use a condom every time." Then she lost consciousness. I felt my cheeks become wet with tears. I was surprised that I didn't get rid of all my feelings for her. Did that change things? I assumed that yes, but will they both survive? If not, then it will not change anything. The machines she was connected to began to go into alarm mode as she passed out. I was kicked out of the room when the doctors got to work. James sat outside, looking like a man who had aged 10 years since I saw him at the courthouse. One word to describe him: haggard. Well, Jim, I'm so sorry. When I found out she was pregnant, I just assumed it was probably Matt's baby, but she was sure it was impossible. She cheated, but she never wanted anyone's children except yours. I don't feel like I have the right to approach you about this. If I was wrong, sorry. It was difficult to get her to take care of herself. Martha surprised me, and not in a good way. She felt so disappointed by what Kate did to you. She seems to have no interest in her daughter. She seems to have given up on her. Jim, I don't need your sympathy. I'm just trying to explain things. I feel between a rock and a very hard place. I'm on the verge of telling you the truth. Now this. I patted James on the hand. He was a good person in a bad place because of the actions of others, trying to do the right thing for others. Even if he didn't get everything right, it came from a good place. I felt bad for him. We sat for 3 or 4 hours. Then the doctor came up and asked who the next of kin was. James said, "Can you talk to both of us together? What is the situation?" Well, the current crisis is over. Both mother and child are hanging on, and gentlemen, I mean hang on. Neither of them are in good health. I am afraid for the mother, but I am afraid that the child may have health problems if he survives completely. We'll obviously be keeping her for the next few days. We'll be working on getting her body back into better shape to handle the pregnancy. Gentlemen, excuse me, but I have to ask, how did she become so exhausted? James attributed the situation to separation and divorce, Kate's lack of motivation to continue living, and then, belatedly, discovering that she was pregnant. Okay, I assume you, sir, are the baby's father. Look at me. So it looks like doctor, but I didn't know anything about it until a few hours ago. If the child survives, I will need a DNA test, and if it is my child, I will support him. I looked at James and added, I'm sorry, James, I'll support the baby, but I can't go back to Kate. I'm in too much pain. The doctor looked at me seriously and said, Sir, it may not be my business, but I'll tell you this, just so we can be clear, it's actually not my place as a doctor to say this, but man to man, I'll tell you. Based on your ex-wife's condition and what her father has told me, it wouldn't surprise me if you became a single parent within a year. I shrank into the chair. Great, damn doctor, trying to get me to take her back. I haven't said anything yet. It turned out she was 6 months pregnant, which must be tough for the poor baby. Was this my child? It's quite possible that Kate, in her depressed state, messed up her birth control, and of course we had a lot of sex. Whether it was true or not that she made Matt wear condoms, the number of times we had sex made me the likely father. If it were my child, could I leave? Will I want to leave? What kind of relationship could I have with the child's mother? Life became very difficult just when I thought I was free of my problems and was getting ready to leave town. Amazingly, mother and baby survived thanks to the specialized care they received when they realized her pregnancy and difficulties. The baby was born weighing just over 4 pounds, very light, but much lighter. The babies survived and thrived, and the baby, a boy, was remarkably healthy otherwise. Kate gained weight under care and came through relatively unscathed, although questions remained about how much damage she might have done to herself and her future fertility. Unfortunately, from my point of view, the DNA test confirmed that I am the father of the child, a complication that I have been dreading for the last 3 months since I learned about this possibility. I always thought that fatherhood would be one of the joys of my life, but the experience was seriously spoiled. It seemed like it would mean a lifelong relationship with a woman I could no longer stand. Nothing had changed. I had no desire to ever see her again, just as I had no desire for her to die when it was a real possibility. 3 or 4 days after the birth, James contacted me again. Jim, I'm calling about the baby. Kate wants to know if you want to have a say in choosing a boy's name. James, I didn't even think about it. We got divorced. I didn't expect to be consulted. The only thing I wish was that she wouldn't use my last name. Maybe she can use your name, Kelly. Does that sound reasonable? Jim, I'm sorry, but I think you need to talk to her. She still calls herself Kate Wilson. It could cause problems for the baby if his name is different from his mother and father. Besides, don't you want to see your son, Jim? I hesitated, thought about it, and then decided that this is what I should do. Is she still living with you, James? To her. Okay, I'll come over tonight after dinner at 7:00 p.m., okay? See you, Jim. I arrived promptly at 7 and James let me in. I had not seen Martha for many months. She looked haggard and suddenly aged, just like James. Two good people were put in a difficult situation. Martha hugged me and whispered in my ear, "That's not how we raised her, Jim." Then they left me alone with Kate and the baby. "Hey, Jim, thanks for coming. Want to hold the baby?" It wasn't the little guy's fault. I picked him up and looked at him. Big mistake. I suddenly felt what parents should do when holding their child. Emotions took over, and I found it hard to breathe for a while. He looked up and looked me in the eyes. I had no idea what he was thinking, but it probably revolved around a kind of familial recognition and need for protection. I was hooked. I started smiling at him. Hell, I had no idea if this was what she was expecting, but she was smiling too. Cute, isn't it? I nodded in agreement, but my heart broke again. Damn it, Kate, why did you do this to us? We could be perfect. These could be our dreams, the best days of our lives. She teared up and said, "We can still be, Jim. Can't you learn to forgive me? I'm seriously ill. I made a very bad choice. Please, Jim, please try." I tried to give it back to her. I was going to run away and not come back, but she didn't take it. "Damn it, Kate, take your son. I need to get out of here." I was close to panic. "No, Jim, we need to talk. At least the boy needs a name. But you are not a coward. You have never run away from anything. Please talk to me. We need to work things out for his sake, and for our sake too." I sat down again, still holding my son. This was going to be difficult. I was confused and had no idea what to do. Looking into his eyes, I realized that I could not leave him. "James Kelly Wilson, what does that sound like?" I said quietly. She smiled and said that she liked these two best men in her life. I wondered if she preferred the name Matt, but I restrained myself. "Kate, I have a problem. I want him in my life, but I don't want you. I will never forgive what you did, whether you were sick or not. You did it, and did it repeatedly with my ex-best friend. I can't live with this, Kate, and I can't live with you. I can't live with someone I don't love. You need to think about how we can deal with this. I will support my son, but that's it." Having sold my share of the business and planning to leave town, the arrival of my son forced me to reconsider my plans. Although I still had a large amount of money left after paying off the loan and canceling my parents' guarantee, I needed to work. Plumbing was all I knew, so I started my own business. I had my truck from J&M Plumbing and had an artist redo the logo. The new business was called Jim Wilson's Plumbing, and I added the cheeky caption, "Former managing partner of J&M Plumbing." If Matt didn't like it, he could have spent the money on the lawsuit if he could have afforded it. Nothing happened, but people knew who I was, and I quickly got as much work as I wanted. I have set up child support for James Jr. Nothing was settled in court. I set an amount I thought was reasonable, and Kate didn't argue. Without telling her, I also set up a college fund for Junior. If he's like his dad and doesn't want to go to college, he'll get the money on his 25th birthday. Everything was fine, but I was waiting, not knowing why. I planned to start over, and that included my hopes of meeting someone new to live with. This would have been more difficult in our town, where many people knew who I was and what happened in my marriage. So it was quite a frustrating time for me. I worked, visited my son, and did very little else. I made arrangements for visits with Junior, but nothing was satisfactory. James, my former father-in-law, was still the go-between, and he was often the one who met me when I picked up Junior. I made it clear that I wanted as little contact with Kate as possible. I had no thoughts of forgiving her, and I did not want to have any relationship with her. 6 months later, James told me that Kate seemed to be having psychological problems again. Like me, her life was filled with work and Junior. James said she hasn't dated men at all since becoming a mother. He said that she had no interest, and she rejected all approaches to her, including, interestingly, the approach from Matt. This caught my attention. I assumed this would be her natural future. even if Matt said he didn't want her. Maybe he just wanted her as a lover, without strings attached. I thought it was time for this snake to feel a little pain. I was concerned that if Kate deteriorated again, it would affect Junior. I even considered declaring her an unfit mother and trying to get full custody. Was I really ready for this in my life? Being a single parent full-time? Probably not, so what was the alternative? I needed to make sure she remained healthy and able to be his mother. How? No matter how I looked at it, it seemed impossible without more interaction with her than I wanted, than my wounded pride would allow. She cheated on me, I couldn't come to terms with it, forgive, forget, impossible. Of course, you know where this is going. Guy gets hit, divorces wife, wife is pregnant, it's his baby, he takes her back, blah blah blah. Could I be a person who would back away from my harsh judgment? I never thought so, but life sometimes throws strange things at us, circumstances we never expected. Of course, at the core of our humanity is the ability to adapt to a changing reality in order to survive. Crap. Bad news comes in droves. James told me that Kate seemed to be struggling again. Now the bad news was for James. He had suffered a small stroke. Nothing serious, no lasting damage, but it was a warning that he needed to make his life easier. With Martha struggling with her daughter's infidelity, James took on primary care for Kate and Junior. Now what? Well, she's not my wife anymore, but he's my son. I had to take some of the responsibility. We held a conference among the non-family, and it was decided that everyone except James should take on more responsibility. Kate had to take her medications and fulfill her responsibilities as a mother. I had to be more supportive of her, which James mostly did, and Martha had to help her husband if she didn't want to lose him prematurely. The thought of being more involved with Kate wasn't pleasant, it made me angry, but I was a dad, time to be one, not just a when it's convenient dad. For this to work, I decided that I had to be lenient with Kate to make her life easier, and thus make caring for my son easier. I started bringing prepared meals to their house twice a week, and staying with them in the evening, leaving when Junior went to bed. I cooked simple, fresh meals once a week on the weekends. I wasn't a cook, but I didn't poison anyone. My meatloaf was pretty decent. Of course, this meant that I talked to Kate a lot more than I had in the last year since the breakup. It started off very slowly, brief, strained conversations, but over time we began to talk more like friends, with an added interest in our shared child. As we became more comfortable in each other's company, I found it difficult to maintain my dislike for her. I won't say that I started to love her, but I rediscovered that empathy for another person is not so difficult. I made it my business to make sure she adhered to her medication regimen, and gradually she began to come out of her depression. It really didn't take a scientist to figure out what kind of cure she needed. All she had to do was smile and say a few kind words. She was almost literally dying from lack of attention, from being considered a pariah, and of course, when people treat you like that, from lack of self-respect. A few decent evenings spent as a family with our son quickly lifted her spirits. I began to wonder if I was doing the right thing by treating the woman I loved with all my heart this way. She broke my heart, she gave me a reason. Many men will tell you that if a wife cheats even once, let alone a 2-month affair, it should lead to expulsion. But I'm better than that. Should I really treat the woman I loved, and with whom I now have a child, as completely worthless? I began to think that although I was wrong, perhaps I had gone too far with the punishment. After all, I beat up my ex-friend twice. I put him in financial difficulty by threatening to sell the company to an aggressive buyer. I started a new business and stole some clients he paid. I could have him pay more and pay regularly, but I have already punished my ex-friend. Should her punishment be so complete? Of course, we were married. She lost it. She had to move back in with her parents. She was stuck in a job she hated with no end in sight for the foreseeable future. And of course, she lost the love she claimed was the only one she wanted, and since she wasn't dating anyone, she lived a lonely life. She suffered, we all suffered, Kate, Matt, and I, our lives were turned upside down. There were no winners in this strong triangle of friendship, which was now inextricably destroyed. Matt was dead to me. I thought Kate was too, until that little baby came along. I got his share of vengeance on both sinners when enough was enough. At one stage, I thought the answer to this question would be when hell freezes over. Now I had doubts. I had a son to think about, completely innocent. I had to be a man for him. His mother had been on the verge of depression ever since her affair began, and I found out about it, since our divorce and her pregnancy, when both she and the child could have died. I remembered the words spoken by this doctor, person to person, not as a medical professional, the words that I could become a single mother within a year, clearly indicating that Kate was a potential suicide, intentionally or by default, just not caring about me. To top it all off, one of the best men I've ever known, my ex-father-in-law James, almost drove himself into his grave and ruined his health trying to take care of everyone else's problems. Yes, the time to be a man has truly come. I needed to talk to Kate so she could understand exactly what I was offering. I went to James and Martha's earlier than usual on Saturday. I needed to talk to Kate privately before making my usual meatloaf for everyone. James and Martha tactfully gave us space by taking Junior with them. Kate, I've thought about it. What we're doing doesn't give James the best chance of recovery. He doesn't need the stress of you and Junior at his house and me coming over 3 nights a week, so I have a plan. I think you and I and Junior should find somewhere to live together. I see you smiling, but don't take it the wrong way. You must understand that this will be a purely platonic coexistence. I have not yet forgiven what you and that bastard Matt did to me. I realize what it means now in the new circumstances, but it is not forgiven or forgotten, and probably never will be. I offer this purely out of respect for your father, who has always been wonderful to me. It's not for you, although I think it will make taking care of our son easier for both of us. I also understand that your problems require someone to monitor your medications, and I am willing to be that person for the sake of our son who needs both parents. If you start a relationship with another man, this arrangement will end. We are divorced, but I will not be your babysitter while you go on dates with other men. Is that understandable, and can you live the way I described? Kate couldn't hide her smile. Yes, Jim, I would do anything to be with you and Junior every day, but I understand that you set boundaries. I agree to whatever you want, but I'll tell you, we may be platonic, but that won't stop me from trying to win your interest again. I'm not talking about putting yourself out there. I'm talking about acting like a good wife, minus the sex, unless you change your mind. If you change your mind, you will find me ready. If not, I will take any form of relationship with you. So we found a place, and the 3 of us moved in. It was a tense existence, 2 people who had once loved each other, one of whom claimed to still be in love, but living a celibate life together. For Jim, being with his son 247 was both a pleasure and a challenge. Apart from work, Junior seemed to occupy all the time until he went to bed. Luckily, Junior was a great kid. Despite the problems during the pregnancy, he was incredibly healthy. He soon reached an ideal weight for his age and slept 8-9 hours almost every night. The kind of child you can only dream of. When he was awake, he was a little bundle of energy. Over time, he began walking at 10 months and speaking a few words at 14 months. With their home life seemingly perfect, despite Jim's continued mistrust of Kate, and sometimes outright antipathy towards her on bad days, a stranger might have thought they were a normal, happy couple. Of course, in their 3-bedroom apartment, everyone had their own bedroom. The adults used theirs to relieve the stress of a celibate lifestyle. Jim knew that he was not committed to celibacy as he insisted for Kate, but something kept him from looking for someone else. He decided that if he did start a relationship with someone, he would keep it away from home. James now looked more like the person everyone was used to seeing. Freed from primary care of Kate and Junior, he was almost back to himself and once again became a strong figure in helping his family through a major crisis. Martha also seemed to come out of her Kate-related depression. Of course, it couldn't last forever. It was an artificial situation. 2 people in their 30s living a celibate lifestyle. Well, of course, it couldn't last forever. Kate was the first to break down. She had her own toys for self-satisfaction, but she lacked real sex with a real man. She had noticed that Jim had become nervous and a little distant over the course of a couple of months. The controlled, emotionless environment they were used to clearly wearing him down. Kate decided to address the elephant in the room. Jim, I love you, and I know you as well as you know yourself. I have never seen you so irritated, Jim. You need to sleep with someone. I'm ready to be anything for you. But if you don't want me, for God's sake, go and get some girl. Jim, I see that you are on the verge of a breakdown. I'm afraid of what this could do to us. These last 9 months have been a great relief for me to live with you again, even if the lack of physical intimacy is killing me. If you snap, I'm so afraid that I won't be able to cope without you. Jim knew she was right, but he wasn't going to confirm it. He took the keys and said he would be back later. In all the months they had lived together, this was the first time he had left before Junior went to bed, another sign that the pressure was too much. Without thinking, he headed to the scene bar, where he often hung out with Matt. Almost a year had passed since they had spoken. Jim had hoped that it would be many more years before he saw his former best friend again. But he was wrong. This was not the place he was supposed to go. He barely made it to the bar when he saw Matt in the mirror behind the bar. Matt was heading towards him, and Jim was about to turn and leave, but it was too late. "Can I buy you a drink, stranger?" Matt asked, holding out his hand for a handshake. It was clear that it was an olive branch from Matt. Jim was not going to accept it. "Get out of my sight, traitor." "Come on, man, forget it. I said 1,000 times that I was a fool, and I was wrong. I'm truly sorry, Jim. Please have a drink with me. I heard that you and Kate are back together and having a baby. That's wonderful. I'm happy for you." "Fuck you, Matt. We live together, but we are not together. We will never be together because of you. Yes, we share a son, but we are not married and never will be again. You arranged this, my best friend. I thought you would court her, and then I remembered that you are the same scumbag who wants to fuck, but does not have the courage to commit to a long-term relationship. Jim, when you divorced her, I really tried to be with her again. I was ready for a long-term relationship. I decided that she's worth it, but you know what? She told me that you are the only man she wants to be with. You see, you divorced her. You told her you hated her. But Jim, she only loves you. If you weren't so tough, you'd have a woman who knows she made a mistake, but will never do it again. Jim, I know I'm probably the worst best friend ever, but after all our years together, all I want is for you to do well. Kate is the best thing you can ever have in your life. Now, I know that I'm probably making you angry, and if you want to take me outside and beat me up again, then like last time, I won't fight back. I'll take whatever you want to give, because I've offended you enough for one life, and I'll never do it again. You know, there are times when you suddenly hear something from someone and don't doubt a single word. This was one of those moments. It was a far cry from rekindling a broken friendship, but it rang true, every word, and it was enough for me to decide that I had extracted enough revenge from Matt. I looked at Matt, nodded, and left the bar. When I arrived home, I quietly called out to Kate, but received no answer. I called quietly so as not to wake Junior. I went to her closed bedroom door and knocked. Again, there was no answer, so I carefully walked inside and found her quietly crying. She was clearly afraid of what might happen if I left earlier. I took off my clothes, got under the covers, and found Kate naked. I pulled her towards me and kissed her passionately. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.